All right. So, Tess, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm excited that you're all here joining us. So thank you so much for taking the time to show up, and hopefully this will really be beneficial to you guys. So like Chris mentioned, we are recording the webinar. So we'll have that on our library page, which you can see the link to that page on our website showing up on the screen here. We do actually have a collection of other recordings you might want to check out. Our past webinars, if you weren't able to attend those, as well as some tutorial videos and different things like that. So definitely check that out if you have a moment. If I could just ask everybody to please mute your mics while we're doing this presentation, and then at the end we will have a Q&A session. We're going to try to keep the presentation to about 30 minutes to just be respectful of everybody's time. But if you're able to stick around for the question and answer, then we would love to have you stay for that as well. I did just want to mention one thing really quickly before we dive in that is, in case you didn't know, we actually have a new feature on our online ordering setup where you can go to the website and actually select the date and time of your photo shoot as well as your preferred photographer and everything right when you check out. So this is great because if you're at a listing appointment or, in your car, you have 5 extra minutes or it's after hours or something like that, you can just pull up the website and schedule it right then and there. So we have a lot of agents that are really loving this. So I just want to make you aware in case it would be helpful for you. All right, so let's dive in. We will have a PDF of the notes of this webinar as usual, so feel free to just sit back and listen if you'd like to do that. So let's jump into why we are here. We know that LinkedIn is a powerful platform, but we want to know if there's a way to turn LinkedIn into a tool that can really help us harness warm leads for real estate. And the answer is yes, there is a way. It's not a very well-known way. A lot of people think of LinkedIn as kind of an online resume. That's sort of the reputation that it had when it launched. People use it to scout out and network with other individuals in their own industry, obviously. But if you get creative, you can really kind of think outside this box a little bit and use some of the features of LinkedIn to establish connections with people that could very easily become warm leads. We've had a lot of success using some of the methods that I'm going to show you today for our own business with Picture Perfect. So I'm excited to kind of share this with you guys, and hopefully it will help your business out as well. So the things we're going to be covering are, we're going to look at how to take advantage of some of these features to grow your real estate business and establish meaningful warm lead relationships with potential buyers and sellers. So we're going to talk about finding these local people, these buyers and sellers. We're going to talk about some proven strategies for how to strike up conversations with them. And then we're going to talk about an automation process, a software that we use to go ahead and do all of this kind of stuff for us. We really like it. So we're just going to show you a little bit how that works. And then we're going to have a question and answer session as well. If you guys could all just make sure your mics are muted, because I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback in my earphones. Okay, so we have talked about this in other webinars, but just to recap really briefly, the difference with LinkedIn versus other platforms is that people are on LinkedIn to develop mutually beneficial relationships. So this is going to alter your strategy for engaging with people because they are on this platform for a different reason than they're on some of the more social or relaxing kinds of platforms like Facebook and Instagram and so forth. So, we have talked about this in other webinars where it's, in order to use a platform effectively, you really have to understand what its intended use is and why people are there. So, this is no different with LinkedIn, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. So with LinkedIn, because this is the nature of the platform, people are expecting a certain level of sales pitching. What does this mean for you? This means that you can be actually a lot more direct than you can be on some of these other platforms. Of course, you can be direct anywhere, but on LinkedIn, people aren't going to get as annoyed with you for being direct. And this is really an interesting opportunity. This kind of presents some more possibilities for you in your strategy for connecting with people. So we're going to jump in to a live demonstration of some strategies that I want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview on. I'm going to just be giving some kind of general examples to get your wheels turning. Obviously, you'll have to tweak this to kind of get it, tailored to your business and your goals and so forth. But I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about finding the warm leads, and then I want to talk about how to engage with them. So we're going to kind of treat it as two separate pieces. So let's take our first example. Let's just say, excuse me, let's just say that a certain geographic area is a really hot seller's market at the moment. And this is something that sellers in your area might be interested in knowing about, right? So how do we find these people? So let's just use Frederick, Maryland as an example, okay? So to get started, when you log in, you're on your main homepage like we see here. This search bar function up here on the top left is where we're going to get started. Now, to use the search in LinkedIn, you kind of have to just start typing something to get to the search page. So literally, I'll just type anything random here. I'm just going to type in, let's say, manager. The searches are based on what people have in their profile. So it's generally going to be like job titles and things like that. Okay, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just using it to get to this search area here where we have different filters. I don't really care what their job title is for this particular example because we're focusing just on people who live in Frederick in general, right? So let me just kind of explain a little bit about how this works in case you don't know. The connections filter indicates what kind of relationship people have to you. So first connections are people that you are already connected with. Second connections are people who are friends of people who you are connected with. And then third connections are one step removed from that. So friends of friends of friends. That's kind of a mouthful, but you can use this basically to filter out how broad you want your search to be. So like if you're doing a follow-up kind of strategy, you might want to focus on people that you already are connected with, people who maybe you've worked with in the past. So you might want to focus on the first connection parameter. But for finding new people, you're generally going to want to stick with these second and third connection search parameters. So if you have shared connections with somebody, when they receive your connection request, it will tell them that they have, let's say, 15 mutual connections or something like that. So that is kind of an incentive for them to want to connect with you. So it is good to use, I like the second connection aspect the best because it is more closely related. People are more likely to accept. However, sometimes you need to broaden it a little bit if there aren't enough people that fall into this category. So anyway, just to explain to you kind of how to think through that for anybody that doesn't know. Now, locations is just like it sounds. So let's go ahead and put Frederick, Maryland for our example here. For some reason, it's getting cut off though. Hold on. Go ahead and let me restart this page here because it seems like LinkedIn search is actually glitching a little bit. Frederick, Maryland.
Maybe take out manager.
I don't, well, let's see. All right, so let's try this again. Okay, for some reason this is not working, of course, because we are recording this. That's why it's not working. But let's try a different example. Let's just use Washington, D.C., Baltimore area for the sake of time right now. Sometimes LinkedIn and some of the other platforms will glitch a little bit. So sometimes you have to log out, give it a minute, log back in. That's probably what's happening now as well. So let's just do Washington, D.C., Baltimore for the sake of time. And then as far as current companies go, what this is just a way to narrow down, who the person says on their profile that they are currently working for. In our current example, we don't care as much about this, right? Because we just care that they are in the area that's a really hot seller's market that we want to connect with them over. So let's go ahead and set this filter, which we haven't done yet. Okay, so we see here that we have a lot of results, okay? So then the next step is going to be basically just kind of scrolling down this list and connecting with people. So when you hit this connect button, it will send them a request to connect with you. So you can either go ahead and just, if you want to keep it simple, you can connect with everybody here. If you want to get a little bit more specific, you might want to kind of glance at the little, preview that's showing up here as far as what they do and where they are. So you can see this person is in Baltimore specifically. This person's in Washington, D.C. So sometimes looking over this will help you narrow it down a little bit further. I do want to just note, so when we put in manager before, that can be useful at times depending on your strategy. So if you are working with luxury homes, for example, if that's kind of your niche market and you might want to target people who are going to be in a little bit of a higher price range for their homes, you might want to focus on certain job titles that they might have. So you could, work with the job title CEO or vice president, chief advisor, different things that, jobs that they may be involved in that would probably be more in your target range. So you can definitely use that search function if you want to. It's just, for this example, it's not really super relevant. Let me give one more example and then start to kind of narrow down how you're going to approach connecting with people. So let's take another example. Hopefully our search will work a little bit better on this one and LinkedIn won't glitch. But for the sake of an example, let's say you know about a trend that's going on in your market currently. Let's say that Navy Federal is opening up a new branch in Silver Spring, Maryland, and a lot of people from Richmond, Virginia are going to be transferring there. Let's just say you happen to know that because you have some connections. So this is going to create a situation where a lot of people from Richmond are going to be looking for housing in Silver Spring, right? So this is going to change the market in your area. So you could do a similar thing to what we did here, except you would be targeting people from Richmond. So let's say we want to reach out to these Richmond people and just say, hey, are you or anybody you know coming to the area with this transfer? Okay, so let's just say that. Let's broaden this a little bit. Apparently we don't have any third connections in this category. That's why it's grayed out. But if you did have that as an option, I would select that as well. And then under current companies, this time we would use this part of the search. And we would filter it by people who say they are currently working at Navy Federal. It's still glitching. I'm so sorry about this, guys. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we actually only have 2 people in this category, interestingly enough. If we take out the connection filters, so right now we only have it filtering based on people who are connected to us or connected to people who are connected to us. Let's say we take those out. Let's see how that affects our search. Okay, now we have 18 results. So you can kind of see how that works. This is not something set in stone. This is something where you kind of learn the principles and then you play around with it to see what the best search is going to be for your purposes. So again, we see, all these people are working at Navy Federal, and you might want to reach out to them and be like, hey, listen, I have a lot of experience in my area. I've been a realtor for 15 years. I heard that there's this transfer happening, and I was wondering if you or any of your coworkers might be interested in learning some stats about the market here in Silver Spring. Something very direct, very specific to them, something they can't really easily ignore. It's not like a standard spam message. It's something that's actually related to them. And if you are really good about
thank you for calling Chapel Realty, may I help you?
If you're really good about thinking about that kind of thing.
Same to you.
Well, thank you. I haven't
Chris, are you able to do a general mute?
I'm not sure. I've been busy all week.
Hopefully
and
Tess, can I hear you? Tess, unmute you.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so this is just, it's hard to ignore a message that's very personal and specific. So that's really the point of using LinkedIn well. Okay, so remember when you're doing the searches, I have made this mistake before. So just as a little heads up, remember to clear any of the parameters that you don't want, because it will keep the parameters from your last search. So like if we're searching in Richmond, for example, but we want to go back and do something in Frederick, you have to uncheck Richmond to continue your search. Okay, so that's just a little example. Now, let's start to talk about how to connect with these people, because it's one thing to send them a connection request, and it's another thing to get to the point where we're having that conversation with them that we really want to be having. Okay, so a couple of important things. The first is when you invite somebody to connect, let's go ahead and do this as an example. If you can either just send the connection request as is, if you don't have a lot of time, let's say, or you can add a note. I highly recommend adding a note, because when you add a note to a connection request, if that person accepts your request, they will get an inbox notification of your message. So this is a really great way to kind of break the ice and establish a little bit of relationship, rather than just being some random person. Suddenly they have a little bit of a connection to you. Okay, so there's a lot of ways you can do what I'm about to talk about, and you can feel free to experiment with different strategies. But what I recommend is using a little bit of a casual approach, where you make a laid back introduction and then kind of follow up with your sales pitch, maybe 1 or 2 messages after that initial contact. This kind of warms people up a little bit. They don't feel like, you know, you're just pushy and that kind of thing. I definitely get a better response personally when I do this, so I highly recommend it. One thing is that if you are using the paid version of LinkedIn, most people aren't, but just in case you are, you can actually send a message to somebody without asking them to connect. So that is another option. But for most people, we're going to do this strategy where you are going to send them the request, but you're going to add a note. Okay, so in this example, let's just say, you know, well, let's say you're a realtor in the Frederick area. Let's say we're using our initial example of Frederick, Maryland being a hot seller's market, and that is what we are kind of campaigning on at the moment. I'm not going to go back and redo the search parameters just for the sake of time, but let's pretend that we are working in the Frederick market at the moment. So you might say to this person, here I have a little example that I will just copy and paste here. You know, hi, so-and-so, so in this case, Matt. Hi, Matt, I'm looking to network with people in my community and I came across your profile. Would you like to connect? A lot of people are really interested in growing their network in their local community. So this is a really effective way to connect with people. So you just put this message in there and you would hit send. Now, I highly recommend adding your contact information to your messages. So, you know, email, phone number, website if you have one, something that communicates that you are a real estate agent. Now, you could experiment with whether you want to do that on this first message or if you just want to do it on subsequent messages, but it is something to keep in mind. I would probably say in this particular situation, actually, you might not want to put your realtor information because maybe somebody's going to feel like you're going to be pushy, and it could be a little bit of a, you know, setback for you. On the other hand, maybe it could get somebody thinking, oh, wow, this is interesting. I've been thinking about looking for a realtor, and they might click on your website. So you could play around with different options for this very first message, but I'm going to talk about subsequent messages in just a second, and I highly recommend always putting your contact information in those. Okay, so let's go ahead and pretend we're going to hit send. I won't do that right at this moment. So if they accept your request, you will also get an inbox notification of your initial message that you sent to them, as if you already have a conversation thread with this person. So this is a great way to keep track of who is accepting your requests so that you can go back and follow up. I actually use this inbox section of LinkedIn very heavily to keep track of when I last talked to somebody, if somebody has responded. It's a great way to go back to people who haven't responded to you and just say, hey, I know we all get busy. Just wanted to see if you might be interested in what I had mentioned, you know, that kind of thing. So let's take the next example. Let's say Matt accepted your connection request. He is now in your inbox. So your follow-up message could look something like, hey, Matt, I happened to notice from your profile that you live in Frederick, Maryland. Just thought you might want to know that Frederick is a hot seller's market right now, and I'm seeing homeowners receiving thousands of dollars over asking price. I don't know if you or anybody you know in the area might be thinking about selling a home, but I'd love to give you some free advice, maybe chat with you about comps in your area if you'd be interested. So give me a shout anytime. So you see from this example, it's very direct, but very casual at the same time. So this is a really good approach on LinkedIn, I find. In this kind of message, absolutely put your name, phone number, email address, website, anything that's really going to make it easy for them to reach back out to you. Most people are probably going to send you a message back in LinkedIn itself, at least at first. So make sure you get in the habit, if you're not already, of checking your LinkedIn inbox regularly, at least once a day, kind of like an email, because you are going to get people responding to you and you don't want to leave them hanging. Okay, so one note on your contact information: if you don't have an email address that makes it clear that you are a realtor, I recommend creating one just for this purpose. So, you know, johndoerealtor@gmail.com or whatever, just so that they can kind of see visually what you do right there in front of them. If you have a website, this is great because a lot of people will end up just clicking over to it just because they're curious. I find that happens quite frequently, actually, even before I have a chance to really pitch to them sometimes. So anyway, keep that in mind. Always use your contact information. You could also, I'm kind of taking a step back here for just a moment. You could take a much more general approach to what we're talking about. You could just simply send out a message to people saying, if you ever need any real estate advice or know anyone moving to the area, you know, I've got 15 years of real estate experience in the local market. I'd love to help you out if you have any questions. So you see, you could get as general and broad or as specific as you want to. So it really depends on your goals. You could also use this for buyers. You could tell people about some kind of government incentive program that you know about right now for home buyers. There's a lot of things you can do with this. So I am just giving you a couple of, you know, ideas here. So what I want to do is take some of these principles and show you a program that we use to automate this, because obviously this is a little bit time consuming. You could put, you know, just 10 minutes a day into it if you want, but if you really want to gain a lot of contacts and new connections, it does take a little bit of time. So there is a software called Linked Helper, and I'm going to pull up a demo on the screen in just a second. But if you are willing to take the time to kind of watch some of their tutorials and learn the process, it is a very worthwhile program, in my opinion. It's $15 a month, or you can get a year version for $99 last I checked. So it is a little bit cheaper if you do it that way. But in my opinion, it's highly worth it if you really want to use LinkedIn to its full capacity. This program has so many tutorials. It's like amazing. I've never seen a company that is so thorough. It does take time. It can be a little bit of an overwhelming process to get it set up, but if you're patient, you can do their 30-day free trial and kind of get your feet wet a little bit and see if it's something that might help you out. I'm going to have a link to their website where you can download the program. I'm going to have a link to their tutorials in the notes that I will send out at the end of the webinar. So for now, let me just show you a quick little overview of how this works. Let me adjust my screen here. Sorry, bear with me just a second, guys. Okay, so this program does so many things. I'm not even going to begin to scratch the surface, but I just want to give you a brief idea of how useful this could be for your business. So the idea with this software is that it is kind of like a robot, essentially, and it will find the connections, reach out to them, send them messages, and keep track of them for you. So it's very, very powerful. The way that it works is that you tell the program who you want it to put in your queue, and I will show you what I mean in just a second. And then you create a workflow of basically steps that you want it to take and when you want it to take them. So let me just show you quickly what I mean. So if you want to add somebody to your queue, it essentially links to your LinkedIn account and gives you a preview of exactly how it would be if you just went to linkedin.com and logged in like we just did. And you do the exact same thing that you would do in these searches that we just gave some demonstrations of. Let me just adjust this here. Okay, so you can see like it has the search bar, it has the filters, exactly like we just went over. So you would do the same thing here. You'd put in Frederick, Maryland in the location. You could put Navy Federal if we're using that example. So you go ahead and you set your search parameters, and then you tell the program to collect these people for you. So you just hit start collecting and you walk away. It's really awesome. All right, so at that point, it would say you now have a certain number of people in your queue that it just collected for you. So let's say you have 100 people in your queue now, okay? Then you would set up a little sequence of events that you want it to perform. You can make this as simple or as complex as you want. You can do a number of things. You can tell it to invite them to connect with you. That's usually the first step, right? Because in the examples we've just gone over, you want to invite them to connect, you want to send them some messages. So that's pretty much always going to be your first step if you are doing a campaign like we've been talking about. From there, you can do some other things like you can tell the program, okay, I only care about the people who have accepted my request. Okay, so it will filter out people who accepted your request and bump them into the next queue. So it kind of like just keeps bumping people down in the queue. You can add delays between actions. So let's say between asking them to connect and sending them a message, you want to wait a day, let's just say. So it will wait a day and then it will add them to the next queue. You can send a message. You can tailor the message. I'll show you this in just a second, but let me go through the workflow quickly here. You can tell it all kinds of things like if you have already responded to this person or what have you, do not send this message to this person. So you can get very, very specific and really have this be a smooth functioning machine. It takes a little bit of time to set it up and then it just runs in the background and you don't have to pay attention to it. It's quite amazing. You can even send multiple actions. So messages. So let's say you send a message, then you want to follow up with them if they have not responded. So let's say you want to tell the program, okay, you know what, wait 7 days and then send them this other message. Okay, so it's really, really awesome. Let me show you really quickly how you can set up these messages to automate. So you have the example of having the program like add certain fields for you. So you could say, hi, first name, and the program will see, okay, this person I just connected to is named Matt. It will say, hi, Matt, to Matt, and it will say, hi, Bob, to Bob. It's very smart. So you can get very personal sounding, but not have to do the work of typing it every single time. It's really amazing. So you can put your little preset message and save it. You can do a lot of other parameters that I won't get into in this webinar, but they do have so many tutorials if you want to figure out all that it can do. Here's an example of a follow-up message, or I'm sorry, this would be the initial pitch message that we kind of went over already, but this is just the message that is saying, you know, basically I'd love to give you some free advice and that kind of thing. So again, I have it set up to be the first name of the person, so it will sound personalized. And then you can see here, I did a little example of including my contact information at the end of the message. So you can have this preset, say whatever you want, save it, and that's the message that's going to go out to the people that connected with you. Again, you could have, you know, I set this little follow-up message example as, you know, hey, so-and-so, I don't mean to bother you, but I know we all get busy and sometimes things fall through the cracks. Just wanted to follow up and see if you received my last message and if it was of any interest to you. If not, no worries, but if so, I'd love to chat. And again, with the contact information here. So And of course, so that message I have set up to go out 7 days after my first message if they have not responded. So you have like this wide range of possibilities with this program. Really quickly, I want to just show you as well a CRM function that the program has, where you can sort people and tag them. So like, let's say you have people in your queue for this campaign that are from Frederick, and you want to keep track that those people are from Frederick specifically. You would single out those people. There's a lot of ways to do this, so don't pay too much attention to these check marks. But anyway, the point is you can go ahead and tag them however you want. So you could say Frederick, and you could even say, January, if you want to get really specific, have different audiences and things like that. And so then you can come into your CRM later and just search for this tag and only see those people. You can then download those people's contact information. You can have this program extract their email addresses from LinkedIn, extract their phone numbers, extract their websites, and put it into a CSV file or an Excel file for you, which you can then download and put into your email drip campaigns if you have one, or any number of things. So this program, I really cannot say enough good things about it. It is a little bit complicated because it does so much. So I just really recommend, if you're interested in learning about it, just take it slow. Like, watch one tutorial, kind of learn that one part of it, and just the best way I found was to just get in and try it and try setting up a campaign on my own. And each time I came across something I didn't quite know, I would go and watch another tutorial about it. So if you do it slow like that, I find it's not overwhelming, at least not as much. So in closing, let me just go ahead and adjust this quickly. All right, in closing, we covered a lot of information here, and I was trying to be sensitive to the time. So I know I went a little bit fast, and we will have the notes for this, but I just want to, summarize that LinkedIn is about people developing mutually beneficial business relationships. So that means you can be very direct. People are expecting sales pitches. So think in terms of what buyers or sellers might be interested in as far as the real estate knowledge that you have or the expertise that you have, and then use that as your campaign strategy, so to speak, for contacting these people, letting them know how you could be of service to them. Okay, so a casual and direct approach is what I have found to be the best, but by all means, you can experiment with this. You could just go straight to the pitch and see what happens, or you can take a more drawn out approach. Remember to include your contact information so that they know exactly how to reach you. And even those who don't answer you, actually, they might go and check out your website. They may contact you down the road. I have found sometimes people respond to something that I've sent a long time ago. So you really never know how this could be kind of generating warm leads down the road even for you. Or they might refer you to somebody that they happen to know that's selling a home right when they got your message, and they thought of this person, they told them about you. So it can have a lot of ripple effects. The last thing I want to say is make sure that your LinkedIn profile has exactly what you want people to see, because when you send that connection request, people are going to be clicking over to your profile. So because they're curious, right? So make sure that everything on there is what you want them to see as their first impression of you, and make sure everything is correct. So make sure your contact information is correct, that you don't have something outdated on there. Make sure your social media links are correct. Make sure that it's very clear that you are a real estate professional. A lot of us have kind of a variety of a professional background, or I should say a diverse professional background. Our LinkedIn profiles are a little bit all over the place sometimes. So if real estate agent is not what is showing prominently at this point, I recommend going and changing that to make it more prominent on your profile. So that is about it. I hope this gave you guys some ideas. We're going to open this up to questions questions and answers in just a second, but in case any of you do need to cut out, I just want to mention that our next webinar is going to be on February 10th. We're going to be talking about virtual staging and the future of real estate as far as stats and trending strategies, talking about how COVID has increased the need for virtual staging, different things like that. So stay tuned for that. We'll send out, our webinar email like we have been. This is going to be our last webinar. Our February webinar will be our last webinar for a little bit. We're going to take a break for spring market because we know you guys are busy. We'll be busy. So we will be taking a little bit of a break, but hopefully resuming in the future again. So that is all I have. And I think we can open it up for questions and answers now. Chris, I think
I said, how do we access the recording?
The webinar recording, I'm going to be uploading it to the website, and I will send you all a link, everybody that attended. I'll send you a link a little bit later today once we finish processing the video.
I think.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. Quick question on the LinkedIn manager stuff that you just showed us.
Yeah.
Will that also, I guess, maybe send out messages, not like just to our connections already? So meaning, let's say like we could set up a campaign for, 2 weeks down the road, hey, new listing, or 3 weeks down the road, hey, check out this new apartment, will that system do that as well?
Yes, that's a great question. And yes, it can. You can add whoever you want to the queue in the beginning. So you can tell it in those, filter parameters that we went over, you can set it to just first connections, and then you can put your search for whatever else you want to filter down from there or not filter down. But yes, absolutely yes. And that can be a great strategy. I recommend having like a bunch of different campaigns. Like sometimes I even have as many as 20 campaigns running at one time in different areas or different ideas, or even sometimes I'm testing one strategy versus another and kind of comparing the two. So you have like a ton of flexibility with this program.
Tess, can you tell them, you explained about how you can have it on like your laptop and how that whole thing works?
Oh yeah, okay, so the $15 a month or $99 a year is for one license, and all that means really is that you can have one account connected on one computer at a time. However, it's actually really easy to switch computers. So like if you have an assistant that's maybe using it some of the week and then you want to use it on the weekend or whatever, with just a couple of clicks, you can basically just download a small backup that the program creates and then just upload it to your other computer. So it's very easy to switch. You just have to take, a couple extra steps, and you can only use it at one place at a time.
I highly recommend checking out this program. It has been incredibly successful for us we're using it right now to try and find photographers for other areas that we're going to hire. We used it to try and find people interested in virtual staging to grow our database that way. For $100, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It is amazing.
Yeah, and you can get super creative. Like if you're trying to focus on building an email list, for example, maybe you just want to say to people like, hey, would you be interested whenever I have little tidbits about real estate in the area, would you like me to let you know? And if they say yes, you take their email address, and it's a great way to connect really however you want to connect. It is, I do want to say, don't get overwhelmed, because it can, when I first opened the program, I was like, oh, uh-oh. And I tend to be on the techier side, so I was kind of not expecting to be overwhelmed. But if you just, like I said, if you take it slow, you just watch their tutorials, they have an amazing support team. Every time I've emailed them a question, they respond almost immediately. So I do highly recommend at least checking it out. Like I said, there's a 30-day free trial, so you really don't have much to lose. So.
Do we have any other questions? don't think so.
Yeah, it looks like not. I think LinkedIn is like underrated.
It
At
is
least,
underrated. Yep.
yeah, at least with the people that I know. It kind of seems to be something that people don't spend a lot of time focusing on. But I feel personally that for real estate, because it's such a personable industry, it's really an amazing tool. So it's definitely worth, getting stronger in it for sure.
Yep. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you guys so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you next month. And if you have, in the future, anything that you would like us to do webinars on, please reach out to Tess or I, and we would, if enough people are interested, we would love to help you with that.
One more thing quick,
Yep.
Chris. Somebody asked a question how to get this program. I'm going to send out a PDF of a couple notes from this webinar, and I'll have a link in there to the website where you can download the software and kind of read more about it. They've got some videos on their website of kind of an overview. So good question. I will send that out later today.
All right. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.